I've always had a morbid sense of curiosity, and while that's not a fact I'm particularly proud of, I've always just chalked it up to being a teenager. To be honest, it probably started back in middle school when people thought it was fun to send around horrible videos of executions and bizarre porn fetishes to each other on MSN messaging site. Just mentioning it makes me feel old. These days, there's an overabundance of these sites, places to watch people die, blurry videos of car crashes, beheadings, and animal abuse. Of course, it's not something I actively seek out, but when I stumble across it, I feel compelled to just watch, to to prove to myself that nothing can affect me. Though for the truly gruesome stuff, one needs to visit the so-called dark web. As a guy who has fallen far behind in the advancement of technological studies, it's absolutely baffling my mind that only a tiny fragment of the internet is available through a Google search. The rest, which makes up approximately 99.9%, is hidden and requires a special browser to access. With the help of a YouTube tutorial, I quickly downloaded the Tor browser and went on my way to search for the hidden aspects of the internet. It couldn't have taken more than half an hour of clicking on shared onion links before I stumbled across something that quenched my thirst for the horrible forever. The website itself was rather plain, just a black background with a video player in its center and a chat box beneath it. Within a few seconds of entering the website, the video itself had loaded and automatically started playing. What was depicted before me was a scrawny looking man in his early 20s, strapped to a chair and covered in wounds. In the upper left corner of the video, a timer ran, counting up each second. 24 minutes and 14 seconds. Please, stop. Please, it was an accident, I swear, he yelled. A larger man entered the picture, a large needle in his hand, connected to an empty syringe. Without speaking a word, he stuck the needle as far as it could go into the victim's abdomen. He let out a scream, a loud scream, as the man removed the needle and plunged it back in. After a few stabs, the man grabbed a hammer and hit the victim straight in his jaw, shattering his mandible, leaving him unable to form any coherent speech. He let out a gargled whimper before passing out. I tried to forward the video. Sure, it had to be fake, but that's when I realized that it wasn't pre-recorded footage, but a live stream. 26 minutes and 12 seconds were the words that lit up the screen. The chat beneath the video went wild, calling out the victim as a pathetic excuse of a human being and demanding that man continued to torture. A few seconds passed, and the chat was replaced by a voting form containing only two options: life or death. The votes were quickly counting, the bar for death rising rapidly. As much as I could stomach, I wouldn't be a part of an act of murder, so I quickly voted for life. In the end, the results were displayed on the screen. Out of 200 people, the results were 95% for death, 4% for life, 1% did not vote. 10 people had tried to save the poor kid, but it wasn't enough. Without further warning, The man grabbed the hammer and started repeatedly hitting him, starting from the legs and working his way up until all that remained was a bloody pile of broken flesh. I sat speechless, staring helplessly at the screen as I noticed that my camera light had lit up. The video player vanished, and in its place, 10 smaller boxes popped up, all displaying people from various places around the world, all being unknowingly filmed with their own web cameras. To my absolute horror, one of the boxes showed my bedroom and myself wearing a terrified expression. It quickly dawned on me that these were the people who voted to save the poor kid. Who will be next? A message said as the timer counts down towards 0. A few boxes turned black, to which the chat responded with laughter. A hopeless attempt to escape. 3, 2, 1. 9 of the 10 pictures disappeared from the screen, including my own, leaving the screen occupied by a middle-aged Asian man, frozen in fear. We'll see you soon. Good luck. I let out a sigh of both relief and panic. I escaped unharmed, but not everyone was that lucky. Of course, I called the police, but by the time they could even look into it, the link had long since expired. I don't know what else I could have done, but it taught me not to look too deep into the depths of the dark web. Please help. I don't know what to do at this point. A bit of context. I'm a junior in high school, and currently my school is on a spring break of sorts where they aren't doing online classes. That's nice and all, but I am extremely bored all day because of it. So to compensate for that, I've been taking random drives around town. I like driving. It's calming. So anyways, yesterday I decided to take my skateboard to my old middle school and skate around because I can't practice curbs in my garage. It's a big place and pretty secluded for a school. I got there and just as I suspected, there was nobody there. I did notice a random white car parked in the lot, but there was nobody in it, and I passed it off as nothing. I brought my speaker and board and started cruising around, doing ollies and whatnot. I'm sort of a beginner. The best trick I can do is a shaky shivot. I was taking a break on one of the benches outside, listening to music and scrolling on my phone when I had the random thought that I should look inside the windows of the school. I was a lot smaller and more innocent in middle school, so it might be interesting to see the inside with fresh eyes. I walked up to the first window and squinted, placing my hand on the glass. Inside the room was a table, some chairs, a whiteboard with some random notes still on it, and an extra large soda cup, like the kind you get at the movies. I cringed, imagining that the soda was still in there fermenting. Ugh. I watched the soda cup before something caught the corner of my eye. I looked at the doorway and stopped. There was a man. He was just standing there, completely naked, totally exposed and everything. He had to be around 6'2" or 6'3", judging from his position in the room, and proportionately muscled. He was completely hairless, bald up top, no eyebrows, no facial hair. But what stopped me was his eyes. They never blinked, never twitched, just stared directly at mine. I shivered. I slowly backed away from the window, not taking my eyes off the man. Once I was back at the bench, I quickly grabbed my stuff and ran to my car. I stayed in the lot car for a while, just parked in the lot. Needless to say, I was more than a little freaked out. Who was this guy? Why was he naked? Why was he in the school? And why did he stare at me like that? I started the car up and drove home. I tried playing music to calm me down, but my mind kept going back to the guy. When I got home, I stayed in the kitchen where my mom was cooking dinner. I didn't want to be alone for some reason. During dinner is when I saw him again. I was eating my food, staring at my bowl hazily as my parents and brother talked about some TV show. Then something again caught my eye, and from the very corners of my vision, I saw him. He was sitting on my couch, body turned away from me, but his head cocked in an unnatural manner towards me, staring. I quickly looked directly at the couch, only to see nothing. Now he was in the hallway, again in the peripherals of my vision. Still naked, still staring. My parents didn't seem to notice anything. I stayed at the table for as long as I could before finally getting up and going to the bonus room to play Xbox. He was in the bonus room with me. This time sitting on the floor by the wall, hairless legs pulled up to his chest. He never made any noise, never shifted at all, but I could tell he was a little bit different. He was definitely not a human. I don't know how to explain it, but his hands were too big. His head was a little too small. His nose was a little too flat. Not enough to be noticeable, but enough that after sitting with him in the bonus room for an hour, I can make it out. That night I tried to sleep. If I slept facing away from the wall, he lurked in the dark corner of my room. If I slept on my back, he stood right next to my bed. I tried sleeping facing the wall as there was no place for him to be. I was wrong. When I lied on my side facing the wall, he sat at the foot of my bed. I decided on sleeping away from the wall, since in this position, he was farthest away from me. He stayed that way the whole night, staring at me from the darkness. I didn't sleep. I didn't know what would happen if I closed my eyes, if he would get closer. So that brings us to now. I'm writing this on my bed. He is still standing in the corner of my room watching. I can tell that his features are more defined, and he seems to be getting bolder, as if he's testing how far into my vision he can be. When I looked at him for that long at the school, he must have become latched on to me somehow. If only I hadn't looked into that window. Nobody else sees him. And he doesn't show up in pictures. I've tried. Please. Help. Every night when I lie awake in bed, I would hear my father get up at the exact same time, 3:30 a.m. Whether it was a weekend or a weekday, it didn't matter. He would first use the bathroom, come out, then quietly shut the door while my mother slept. He would tiptoe downstairs and go into the basement. As a kid, I knew better than to be up at 3 in the morning, so I would just ignore it and think he might just be watching TV. But there was a TV in the living room. Maybe he didn't want to wake anybody up. I never asked him about it, and it went on for years. I would go to bed, sometimes wake up, and hear my dad quietly go to the basement. In the morning, he would be back in bed as if nothing ever happened. Over time, I would stay up late studying or playing video games, and even with my door closed, I could still hear him shuffle downstairs at 3 in the morning. My curiosity was piqued. Now, you see, my dad wasn't the type of guy I could ask too many questions to. He was strict about his business and would beat me if he didn't like what I did or said. But this was something I couldn't stop thinking about. That was until an opportunity came. It might have been a bit past 3 a.m. I had woke up in the middle of the night and needed to use the bathroom. As I made my way to the toilet, I noticed that the light was on inside the bathroom, which made me think someone was in there. So I made my way down to use the bathroom in our basement. It was at that moment I realized my father may have been downstairs. Sure enough, the basement light was on. I thought about it for a second. I was older now and he couldn't really spank me, but I was still terrified of him. I gathered whatever balls I had and made my way down to the basement. Slowly and carefully, I crept down each step, holding my breath. I couldn't hear a thing. The closer I got, the harder my heart started to beat. I finally got to the last step. I took a deep breath and began to open the door slowly. When I peeked in, I wanted to cry, scream, yell. I wanted to faint. I went dizzy. I couldn't get any words out. There he was. My father. Sitting watching TV. With his back turned and watching. I can't even say what he was watching. It was so grotesque. I blocked it out. The violent, horrible things these people were doing, and to see my father's face as he did the same things shook me to my core. I stood in shock, confused. At that moment, he looked back, saw me, and cut the TV off. He just glared at me. We made eye contact for an eternity before I ran upstairs, jumped into my bed, and held onto my covers for dear life. We didn't speak much after that. I moved out when I was 18.